well, first lung in. So the first lung was in, and of course I had machines that were breathing for me, and so oxygenating my blood. And so anyway, she's like, okay, she kept praying, fall back asleep again. And so then another 6 hours, and as the surgery continued, and they got the second lung in, and they it's a big procedure. I not to be too graphic, but they cut the breastbone, and the rib cages opened up so they can get to the lungs. So anyway, so I realized this after. Thank God I didn't look into it too much before, but I realized the intensity of the surgery. But so they got both lungs in, and my other lung surgeon sutured me. Well, yeah, I guess they were about to suture me up, but they anyway. Long story short, the lung surgeon, there was one clamp left on an artery, I guess, and I don't know. I don't want to blame him. Maybe he was tired. I'm sure he was. But they tag team between two lung surgeons because one can't do that whole 12-hour shift. So anyway, the lung surgeon took off the clamp too early, and I bled out. So all the blood in my entire body just left.
God.
And how I know that is that my wife the next day had asked the nurse, what happened? What do you mean he bled out? And the nurse goes, he died. They were fast and furious doing intravenous blood transfusions, to get him to life. It was so frantic, and I guess it's so intense that when the surgery was over, I had a gash on the top of my head. My wife calls it the Amazon smile on the back of my head, and also something on my foot. So I venture to say it was pretty rough for the doctors and nurses to get me back to life. So, but anyway, when the doctor took off the clamp and I bled out, I died, and I started raising off the table. I saw myself. I saw them working on me, and I thought this shouldn't be happening. Um, and I was going off the table, and I'm like, I think I died. And as I'm going off the table, right immediately when I was leaving my body, I heard these voices. You're not good enough. Who do you think you are? And just like, saying all these kind of things to me. And as a Christian, I said, wait a second, you can't talk to me like that. In the name of Jesus, you be quiet. I said, stop. And those voices silenced and never spoke again. And when I raised up a little further through the ceiling into the heavenly realm, I saw all around me these swirling lights. And as I was looking at it, there were wings, and I noticed there were angels all like encircling me. And I was looking in amazement. I'm like looking at these beautiful colors, and I'm going, wow. I mean, like, this is so beautiful. And then they start singing, and they said, Mike's coming home. Mike's coming home. When a believer dies, the angels rejoice that we're coming to the heavenly kingdom. And I'm like, I was overwhelmed, like, who am I that they should be even saying that? And, when they started singing that, I heard a voice. It was the Lord's voice, and he said, no, he's just here for a visit. So at that point, I was standing in heaven, and it was bright, hot light. It was just so intense. And as far as I can see, as far as the eye can see, all around me, it was just light. It was beautiful. It was like, it was just total. Tell people, like, it was total bliss. It was total, like, unbelievable that I was standing there in glory. And I'm like, I just stood there for a second. I was collecting my thoughts. I didn't see anybody. I didn't hear anything. I was just in this.
What did you see at that
Well,
point, at that moment?
I just saw, it was like light everywhere, and like underneath me, above me, behind me, in front of me. It was just bright light. I was engulfed in this light.
Could
I
you
call it,
see you?
yes, I saw myself standing there,
You saw your
and
body? Like,
I saw my body, but it almost looked like I was in white myself. I call it bathed in light, bathed in heaven's light. And that's what I felt. And then in my mind, because you still have your faculties, in my mind, I thought, I was starting to think of my whole life, kind of flashed before me. And I was trying to, and there was nothing there that made me feel guilty. It was like everything was washed away, all the mistakes, all the failures, all my sins. And then this realization came over me. It's Jesus. It's him. That's why everything's washed away. I mean, it's all him. He filled the heavens. He was all in all. I felt every particle of my being it was Jesus covering me. His blood washed away all my sins. And I just felt like so free. And it was like no worries. And then I thought, wow, we used to worry about so much on the earth. We worry about our finances. We worry about our health. And while we're going through suffering and everything, it's not pleasant, but it's such a short time. It doesn't feel like it, but in the light of eternity, it's a blip. It's not even
and you had all
worth
those thoughts at that
all those
moment.
thoughts
Did
in
you
that
see
moment.
any little flashes of anything, even a split
Uh,
second of
just
anything?
no, no, because at that point, after that happened, this peace came over me, like, wow, you know, Jesus is everything. He fills all in all. It was like an epiphany of, I knew these truths. I'm a preacher. I preach these things, but I felt them in heaven. It was the reality of what I taught on the earth was complete. I felt because of Jesus, I felt validated. I felt complete. I felt whole when I was in heaven. It was like everything came to just like the realization that this is where I belong. This is home. So it
Was
was
what
so
did you ever think, is this all there is? This right here?
well. What I thought, and I tell this jokingly to some other people, is like, I'm a Norwegian by ancestry, so I'm a Viking. I love exploring, right? So not pillaging and harming anything, but I just love the adventure. I think uh, I don't know. I think that's just my nature, and that's how I am. So while I was standing there, I'm thinking, what else is here? My mind was going like, oh my goodness, the possibilities are endless, you know, and uh, and yet in the midst of all that thinking and thought and feeling, I looked behind me. For some reason, I felt like something was coming behind me, so I looked over my left shoulder, and there was Jesus, and there was the donor. And here's why: right before that happened, when I stopped myself, before I noticed them behind me, I somehow in my spirit rose up. I said, I didn't want to see my mom or dad. I didn't want to see, I just wanted to see the donor. This guy died, or girl, to give me life, to let me live again. And I've had a heart full of gratefulness. And so I said, I want to thank my donor. As I
Oh,
shouted in heaven. And all of a sudden I looked behind my shoulder, and there was Jesus and the donor.
what
And
did
they were coming.
Jesus, what did Jesus look like?
You know what? Everyone asked me that and what the donor looked like, and they were fuzzy. And I was like, I always wondered why I didn't see them full face to face, the donor or Jesus, and especially Jesus. And someone said, well, if you would have seen Jesus, you wouldn't have come back. Somehow, something about when you see the fullness of God, that's it. You're going to stay.
I saw
And so,
outlines,
yes,
just
outlines,
outlines.
but I knew in my spirit, and my soul,
Right,
that's who it was.
right.
And because of what happened next, this is why I knew. So I see Jesus and the donor coming toward me in bodily form, and And so I kind of trying to look at the donor to see what they were like, male, female, like, what. And I did see that they were, um, you know, the skin tone looked like a Middle Eastern person, like you know, I don't know. That's just how I envisioned it for some reason. And I thought, oh, I wonder what their name is, but you know what? At that split second, it didn't matter. All I wanted to hug them, and I just felt like they felt grateful that I got them, that I got the lungs. That's the feeling I got when I was standing there. And then Jesus put his hand on my left shoulder and said, Mike, these are your new lungs. You receive them. Oh, I said, yes, Lord, I'll receive these lungs. I'll receive life. At that point, I was thinking I could have had a choice to stay or to leave, but I looked, kind of was looking down and going, I need to go back to the earth for my wife, my son, and I think I still have more work to do. And I had retired as a minister, but I didn't know what that work was going to be, what it was going to look like. So I said, after he said, these are your new lungs, I said, yes. And then I think the acknowledgement of the gift, the acknowledgement that he knew what I went through and all the suffering I went through. And he knew I needed these lungs. And I said, I agreed with the Lord and said, yes, yeah, I'll take them. I'll take them. And meanwhile, my body was struggling on the earth in the OR, they're trying to bring me back to life. And I think I had to make that agreement with the Lord that I would receive those lungs. And, I'm kind of thinking maybe that I was fighting on the OR table, because I don't know. I try to explain to people organ donation is a wonderful thing. I'm very grateful. But there's always thoughts before you get transplanted, whether it's a kidney or lung or heart, is that you're receiving into your body another person's organs, their DNA. It's a huge thing to contemplate that this person's organs are going into your body. And so it didn't freak me out. I heard some weird stories, but I just thought I needed peace in making that decision. And when the Lord said, these are your lungs, Mike, that totally transformed my thinking, totally gave me such peace that when I went back down, I knew that they were mine.